Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is The Social Hour with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, episode 27, recorded Monday, September 26th, 2011. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Social Hour in Petaluma, California. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur, back in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Hi, Amber. It's nice to see you back in your home state with the stairs behind you. It's comforting.
I know. It's comforting for me as well. I'm thinking back to last week where I was in the airport in, I think, Houston, and it was a little jarring, just curling up in a corner and hoping no one was really loud and hoping the Wi-Fi would last. But I think it worked out okay, Sarah.
Yeah, it did. We've definitely had, you never know with airports, Wi-Fi can be really iffy, but it was fine. And you looked very comfortable on the floor there.
With my cowboy hat. It's all good when you have a cowboy hat on,
So true. Well, so you're actually not the only person representing the T-Dot on this episode, because we are joined by Sergeant Tim Burrows from the Toronto Police Department. Hello, yes. Sergeant Tim.
How are you all doing today?
Hi. Super excited to have you on the show and talk about social media and law enforcement. I've known, just for people who are listening or watching, I've known Tim, or should I say Sergeant Burrows, for a long time now, back from a few years ago when you first got on Twitter. And now you've really helped, with a team of people kind of do so many interesting things at the Toronto Police Force, which is one of the biggest in North America.
Yeah, and you go back to when we first met and we reached out and met at that Starbucks. That was really in its infancy, and I knew nothing about social media, and we were looking at ways to connect with our community. Like you said, this is one of the largest police departments in North America. We have a huge population in Toronto using social media. We recognized really early that we needed to get into the social media space to be able to connect with those people that are there, to not only talk about what issues we think are important for them to understand and know, but more importantly, for them to have an opportunity to talk to us and tell us what they think is important and what it really means a lot to them.
I mean, would this be the sort of an avenue that people would use to send in tips? There's something weird going on this corner, or is it more of just hey, the police department, we're people too, we want to be part of the community, we're all in this together, or a combination of both?
It is. It's a little bit of both. We really try to tell our people that are following us through Facebook or Twitter or YouTube that we don't want crime actually reported through the social media streams, that there does create some problems with that, both from those person's safety, but also in follow-up and authenticity of the accounts and being able to track that type of information. But what we really want to know is what's important in their community. Is there a crime problem that they would like us to pay attention to? Is there a situation, if it's drug dealing in the school area or if it's traffic flow issues, anything like that that is impacting their quality of life in their neighborhoods and their communities? We want to know about that, and then we return the favor by letting them know things that are going on in their communities that might not have been aware of otherwise. And social media allows us to really get into the prevention aspect of issues, whereas the media, mainstream media, does a lot of reporting on what's happening here and now, and that doesn't necessarily really reflect well on the prevention aspects or situational awareness for people, little tips to remind them of good safety practices, and that's where we're finding a lot of success with social media.
There's definitely been some milestones over the past couple of years with law enforcement using social media. I'm thinking back to the G20 in Toronto. Also, most recently, as far as the London riots, I know the police there were famous for using social media, both to try to find people out there who had been responsible for the riots and just to inform the public as well. How do you balance the situation with social media and the public right now as far as making people feel comfortable that they are communicating with the police department online and not making them feel as though it's kind of a big brother sort of thing?
And that's a great aspect to look at. One of the most important things we do is just let people know that behind the official names, whether it's Toronto Police, Traffic Services, TPS, Chris Body, we let them know that there's actually people behind those accounts, and when they're tweeting or Facebooking with us, it's actually people that are responding to them. And we try to speak in plain English. A lot of people have complained that when we start to use cop talk, we're the only ones that really understand it, and we're the only ones that get a true feel for it. So we talk in plain English, and we let the people know that we are listening, and it's our community as well. So when you have a problem and it affects you, it affects us as well. And we want to make a better, safer city in so many different avenues. And we'll take the criticism. Constructive criticism, is probably one of the most valuable things we'll take from it, because it helps us do better. It helps us to meet the needs of the community on their basis, to make sure that, in Toronto, we're going to be making the safest city as possible, both in the real world and in the virtual world.
So you did mention tweeting and Facebooking. I like that verb, by the way. Would you say that your activity, obviously, if we were to try, as Amber and I know, producing the show each week, social media will take over your life if you let it.
Yes.
Do you try to focus your efforts between Twitter and Facebook? Do you think that those have been the most helpful for your organization?
It certainly is the strongest platforms for us to communicate in, because we know that's where the majority of the people are. So we might as well meet them where they are and where they're taking place with their conversations. We've tried a lot of different things. When I first started out, I was working in our traffic unit, and the traffic services account, it became a running joke that when I said to our bosses, I'd like to try something, it was basically the cue that I've been doing it for a little while and think it's strong enough to try to release on the public. And we've used podcasting, we've had blogs, we've done the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channels, both for our traffic branch and for our main Toronto Police accounts. We're always looking for where the people are and where we can really engage with them and have a great, deep conversation. Flickr is something else that we've looked at using. We get a little bit of a problem there, because a lot of the photos that we take, they might be crime related, and we do have to respect the fact that there is a court system, and that does take precedence over getting some of the information out in the terms that we'd really like to get it out there. But right now, for example, we're also experimenting with Google Plus to find out how we can make that fit from the law enforcement community into the mainstream community as well.
I'm curious. I also there's a bunch of questions. Speaking of Google Plus, a few people have asked questions about this topic, so I'll get to them maybe after Sarah's next question. But I'm curious. I know you've been a leader in this space for a while now. Who do you look to as far as other departments and other people out there who are really kind of also at the forefront of using social media in law enforcement?
Well, we don't have to look very far right now. When we first started out, it was difficult to find a really good example of law enforcement that was using social media in anything other than just a simple tweet about a crime that had occurred or a traffic incident that was going on. Now, pretty much virtually everywhere you look, you can get some really, really strong examples of law enforcement using social media for multiple purposes and multiple reasons that are being effective across Canada. You look at Vancouver and the work that they're doing out there. Calgary's got an extremely strong presence and really, really well initiated and saddled in. Ottawa's opening up their streams. But when we look at other law enforcement agencies outside of Canada, I think right now we're seeing the best information coming out of the UK. Really, really strong grassroots neighborhood police officers that are out there in the communities and talking with the people and tweeting about it, putting up pictures from the community on their Facebook pages. Australia, I think the high water mark for, and not to use a pun there, but Queensland, Australia, when they had the floods going on, their Facebook presence went well over 100,000 likes, and that was being used to really get that information to the community. The community was telling them where they were having emergency problems, where people were that needed to be rescued, where volunteer efforts were gathering. I think when you look at those UK, Queensland, Australia, great information coming out of there. And I'd be remiss to say if the Toronto Police said we are forefront, we are the leaders in this, we're trying to be, and really making sure that we can adopt with our community.
What about from within the organization itself? Obviously, you're trying to get the word out with the community as much as possible, and you're really successful. But do DMs come into play? If an officer has to get a hold of another officer, and for whatever reason, the CB radio isn't working. Has that ever come up?
It on a regular basis. We do communicate with each other through the social media channels as well. Part of our training, when we actually launched our own training in-house on how to use social media effectively, best practices, set up from a corporate profile right down to the personnel profiles that each individual officer may want to be using. We show them how to do all that. So if they need to direct message with each other to get some information across on a timeline, sometimes that's going to be a really quick and convenient way to do it. We do respond to the public when they send us a direct message. That might not be as fast as what some people would like. In some cases, the telephone and the old-fashioned methods are still the best. And we still have to respect those. In the organization, we have over 200 now social media accounts between Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, Blogger. So we've got a really great depth of information, and why not reach each other if we can through those spaces?
I'm just going to go to some of our Google Plus questions right now because there are a few comments in here. And I know that you can't speak for every police department around. But this one is from Paul, and he's asked about some rumors that law enforcement are using fake accounts to kind of lure people in and being a little bit tricky and also trying to gain access to people's private info. Maybe you could just respond in terms of, how you're dealing with allegations like this from a community that maybe just isn't as trusting as they perhaps should be of the law enforcement in their area.
And that's what we really have to be cognizant of the fact. And if you look at the terms of service of all the platforms that are out there, they all talk about that and they discuss that. And when we do our training in-house, we tell our officers, you're not going to set up accounts for that purpose and you're not going to do it. There's too much good information to get out there in the public timelines on that two-way communication module than to have to go searching for stuff that's in there that's buried and try to get people in that venue. If somebody posts something in social media, it doesn't matter what the platform is, if it's criminal in nature or if they're identifying criminals or criminal activity, we're certainly going to follow that up if we see that. And if it's brought to our attention, we're not going to shy away from that because we do know that crimes go on online and we're going to have to respond to those in the same manner we would respond to anything else.
We have a question actually from our chat room. I don't know how to pronounce the handle. Treblatlia Sim. Sorry, I'm sure I butchered that. But they're asking, what about cyberbullying? I mean, that's something that gets a lot of attention online these days. And of course, it's a case-by-case basis situation, as are crimes in general. But as far as the situation of cyberbullying and so many people being able to reach others in a negative way in law enforcement, you're obviously aware of this. How do you approach these types of situations?
Well, like you said, Sarah, each one's going to be its own individuality, the merits that we have to base it on. If you take away the cyber component of it, it's no different than what happened years ago in the schoolyard when two kids would be calling each other names and it would go around in their circles. But now when you add in the cyber part of it, it's just in such a great scope for so many other people to see and the damage to go so much deeper. Very little of it actually has a law enforcement component to it that law enforcement can do anything with. It really comes down to societal impact and what friends are willing to tolerate from other friends and where they're willing to step in. Schools, parents, most importantly, have to really be on top of their kids to make sure that they're, doing the right things by their children and that their children are doing the right things when they're on that space. But when it does get over into the criminality aspect, we certainly have to pay attention to it. There is a lot of information that we do put out on a regular basis about cyberbullying and awareness. We watch other accounts, not just law enforcement, but community accounts and city and the health departments. When they're putting out information, we make sure we do the best job we can to retweet that information to raise the awareness within the community. It really comes down to the fact that it's one of those things that we are seeing more and more of, and tragically, some of it gets to that point where some children, they don't see a way out of it. They've been bullied so badly that some cases, it's tragic the way it ends. And we really want to raise the awareness that it's not a one-off situation where that person that you're cyberbullying is, they're the only victims. It can get much bigger than that. It's going to affect a lot of people. And it's a poor use of the internet and the technology that we have. And there's so many good things that can be done that I really wish that cyberbullying was something we could just put behind us, but we know it's here to stay and we're going to keep on addressing it and dealing with it as it comes up for us.
Last question from me. I'm curious if you think social media has kind of brought or helping to bring the police back into the community, because I think of when police used to do kind of foot patrol in certain areas. What I know in my community in Toronto right now, there's an officer who's on our community social network always telling us about crimes in the community, just providing helpful advice. And it's fantastic to finally have that contact. I know you're passionate about this space. So how do you think it is kind of bringing police and the public closer together?
It's been phenomenal for that, and I'm really excited because the officer that you're speaking with, he's going to be on our training course at the end of the month. So we're looking forward to him having a lot more exposure and a lot more impact and influence out there. But in the totality, it's been so good for bringing us together because it gives people an opportunity that if you don't like the police, and you can say it respectfully, we'll open that conversation with you, and we'll talk and dialogue with you, and really try to find out what is at the root of why the relationship is bad. And that's not just on an individual basis, but a community basis. If there's something more we can do, something better we can do, we really want to make sure that we're addressing the community. When it comes to the criminal activity and crime, well, you have to look at social media as the reality that what we are trying to do and what we are doing is essentially taking all the best elements of community policing, going out and meeting the community, let them know that there's a venue and an avenue for your safety, and we're going to help you in every way we can. We also need your help. We've taken those best components and put them online. So we're basically referring to it as community policing online. And that's really how simple it gets in the totality of everything we look at, where we're coming from, how we can engage, the links that we can send people just to raise their own awareness, to raise their own safety. I think one of the most important things about our efforts and what we've been able to do is we're telling people we need your help. The police can't do this alone. When you look back at the original principles that are the foundation for policing, it was based on the fact that the police are the community and the community are the police. And that really means that we have to work together. Your eyes out there in the community, your ears listening to what's going on. When you can feed us the information that's going to make your lives better, your community safer, get the criminal element out of your communities, it's a win-win for everybody. It's a better model of policing. It's when you look at prevention, it's a lot more cost effective. It's the same as in the medical field. We'd rather prevent it than try to investigate it.
Well, I think what you're doing is just awesome. Sergeant Burrows, thank you so much for joining us. I was going to call you Tim, but it's like, it feels too impersonal.
Well, hey, and that's what we want, though. I am Tim. That's the name that I was born with long before I became sergeant or a police officer or anything else like that. So I appreciate that. Right. I really appreciate taking the time that you allow us on your show. It means so much to us.
Well, absolutely. Sergeant Timothy Burrows, the Social Media Relations Officer for the Toronto Police Department. Obviously, times are changing. Toronto's taking social media really seriously. And thanks again, Tim. Now that I can call you Tim.
And I have to just say, I'm not the only social media relations officer. There's several of us out here that are all doing a really, really, really great job. I'm just a small part of a big team. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Amber, it's so cool to get a little, just a look into how much, obviously, they're very passionate about trying to get the community to know what the police department is up to, the community to start a dialogue with each other. I mean, it really does start to bridge the gap between this us and them type of a thing. You know, the police, they're supposed to be the good guys, but what are they really doing? I love the transparency.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, I don't know, for most of my life, I don't want to say I ran away from the police because it sounds like I'm a criminal. But you don't really have any relationship with them. And then because of social media, I find in my own community, all of a sudden, I know Tim, I know the local officer who does a lot of social media in my neighborhood. And I think it's just having that connection. All of a sudden, there's just more respect on both sides. So it can be a really great thing. And sure, there's people who are going to continue to be skeptical. But I know there are a lot of teams around there who are doing a really good job in this space. And they're definitely one of them.
Absolutely. Well, what an awesome guest. And you said that you two know each other? You met in a Starbucks? What's the story
it's funny. Originally, Tim actually emailed me because he was thinking about getting into the social media space and doing more for the Toronto Police. And he asked if I could meet up and talk to him about Twitter and some of the things that he should be doing. So I was kind of like one of a few different people who sort of coached him in the early days of him using these different platforms to try to reach out. And then he just kind of took it and ran. So I'm happy to have met him years ago and sort of watched as he's turned this into an amazing thing for the city.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's obviously taking it really seriously. It's really cool. It's really cool. So awesome guest. I'm glad that you taught him everything he knows, Amber. Once again, helping law enforcement.
Thank you, Sarah.
Just want to give a quick reminder to everybody who's watching live. Thanks so much for joining us. It's fun to obviously see your questions in real time in our chat room on Google Plus, as Amber mentioned. We'll try to do more and more of that as we go along in these shows. But if you're not watching us live, you can watch us live on Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, right here at twit.tv. Our website is twit.tv/TSH. If you ever miss a show, We have everything archived on demand for you. You can subscribe
All
there. Yeah, all of the the show notes, links that we talk about in the show. If you're ever like, well, who was that? And what was her website? We have all of that stuff on our website at twit.tv/TSH. All right, before we get on to Amber, I'm so excited.
I know you're excited. I can tell by the show notes, Sarah, that you're very excited about this next topic. Like there's like almost exclamation marks just screaming out of the page.
Well, I get excited about new things when things change a lot. What I'm not excited about is all my microphones falling off of my ears. So please bear with me. But yeah, before we get to the Facebook timeline, that's what I'm talking about. The Facebook timeline. I turned it on over the weekend, so I'm very excited about that. But before we do that, want to quickly thank Netflix for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. If you don't have a Netflix account, you're missing out because it's the best way to watch movies, television shows, entire series. I mean, hours and hours and hours of series you might need to catch up on, or maybe you never even started in the first place, instantly streaming. And there are a variety of different ways you can watch it. On your laptop, on your iPad. That's what I do at the gym, like pretty much all the time now. On your Xbox 360, straight through a Netflix widget on your TV or your Roku box or your Apple TV. The list goes on. Netflix is really easy to watch. All you need is an account. If you're not sure what they've got, what's on their roster, you've heard about Netflix, they've been in the news a lot lately, just go to netflix.com/twit. That's our special URL so that they know we sent you there. And just go look through their instant streaming queue and you get a good sense of how much you have to choose from. Ooh, Dirty Dancing. Love that movie.
That's a goodie.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Netflix.com/twit. The deal is that if you've already got an account, you think, yeah, well, Sarah, you're not telling me anything I don't know. But you probably know somebody who doesn't use Netflix. And maybe they say, is it really worth it? I'm not sure. Netflix.com/twit. Send them there. They sign up. It's so easy to sign up, and they get free content for 30 days. Anything. There's no only a few movies are available for 30 days. It's the entire collection for 30 days. They can go nuts. At the end of those 30 days, if they like the service, and they probably will because it was awesome, then they can sign up and you can feel good about it. It's like you gave them a gift, but you didn't have to spend any money. Netflix.com/twit, and we thank them so much for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. So we did get an email, Amber, from Katie A., who said, yes, I can't wait to hear you guys' take on the timeline. She's, of course, is referring to Facebook's new timeline. This was announced at F8 last Thursday. It's a big deal. Some people are upset about it, as we would expect with Facebook. Some people are really, they think it's the future. I mean, there are a lot of dramatic blog posts written about people in the tech media space last week about Facebook. It's just going to change the world. We'll never know anything like this again. Dan Lyons actually wrote a really, really funny retort. If you want to read that, you should definitely look that up. But KDA says, listen, here are some thoughts of mine about the new Facebook timeline. By the way, the timeline is something that you can flip the switch on if you connect through the developer app, which is, you basically call yourself a Facebook developer, and it's not really a hack. It's just like a tweak type of a thing that gets you into the new view. But it's not just going to show up unless you are proactive about doing this. I have done that. It's not anything that's against the law or anything. It just requires a little bit of futzing around. So that's what Katie did as well. She says, listen, we get our investment back on Facebook. That's number one. I've been on Facebook since early 2006. Since I started, I was dating, then I got engaged, I got married, I had a baby. A lot of stuff happened. 2 months ago, I was ready to leave Facebook and start all over with Google+, because with Facebook, I just felt like all of that was gone. Now it's all there. It's in the timeline, and it's amazing. Number two, it's pretty self-explanatory. She doesn't think it's, this is not hard to figure out. The ads are once again, on the side. I don't really notice them. She means, Facebook ads, especially on the iPad. I love the ability to put a large photo at the top. We'll look at that. It's called the cover photo on my profile in a second. She says it feels more like a blog than a profile. She does say it's annoying that all of a sudden her videos are in Flash. I get she uploads a lot of videos. I don't to Facebook, so that's not something I've run across yet. And she says, number three, I can now sort my lists so I can freely post about I wanted a giant glass of wine at the end of a bad day, and I don't have to worry about my grandma seeing it and worried that I should be in AA. Katie, kudos to your grandmother for being on Facebook. My grandmother certainly is not. But yeah, she'd probably have the same concerns if I was always... Well, I am always tweeting about wine, so, no secret. So anyway, okay, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and look at my Facebook timeline here. So this is my Facebook profile, okay? So my profile, as we knew it before, last week, pre-timeline, ceases to exist. The reason that this is called a timeline is that now if you can see up here in the upper right corner, we're looking at the now view of my life. And September, August, July, then it starts, as you go farther back in time, it kind of condenses stuff. I lied when I signed up for Facebook and said that I was born in 1911. So Facebook thinks I'm about to turn 100, which is fine with me.
Congratulations.
That's cool. Anyway, so that's when I was born. But as you see, like that's the beginning of my Facebook life. Back in 1911 when I was born, and then it jumps up to 1994, which was basically when I graduated from high school. So that was pretty much my second entry because I haven't put anything in between now and then. If we go back to the now portion of my timeline, what KDA was referring to, this top photo, this is the cover photo. This is in addition to my profile photo, which is something that I changed last week. But, it used to just be one profile photo. And now it does have more of a blog header type of a feel. People have said, wow, this kind of reminds me of MySpace, actually, which I don't really think is a compliment.
It's not a good thing, no.
Yeah. But then again, it definitely is more visual. And that is something that Facebook critics have been critical in the past of, is that there's a lot of information there, but it's really sort of blah and blue and a lot of text and this and that. You see, like in my recent activity, this was the cover photo that I changed. You also have more, I guess, control over what you feature, quote unquote, on your timeline. A little star next to all my posts. Help Facebook know what I want to rise to the top. As it were. These are pictures that I posted on Instagram over the weekend. So it's pretty nice, actually. I'm into it. But I never liked really the way that the Facebook profiles looked before. In fact, I had abandoned my profile, almost completely, and I was totally using my Saraline page, which I felt like just worked a lot better for me because it was more public. And people could that weren't my friends could join the page, and we had a conversation. So I have decided, okay, it's an experiment, but I'm just going to treat my new profile like my page. In fact, my page has been converted completely over to my profile. And I don't know, I'm optimistic about it. I felt like it was time for a change. Then again, people hate Facebook changes as a rule. I know my mom hates the new news stream. What's it called? I always want to keep calling it the Facebook River.
Well, there's just the there's the news stream, but then there's a ticker.
The
Is that
ticker.
what you're talking about?
The ticker, yeah, exactly.
The ticker on the upper right. But I think the timeline's different. I've heard overwhelmingly positive things about the timeline, I think, versus other parts of Facebook. Now, I have not activated my timeline yet. I know it's a sin in the social media space. But I think most of the buzz that I've read is fairly positive, although I have read some headlines where people are talking about, okay, all this information is there. It's basically my life. Will I ever be able to quit Facebook and take that information with me, right? I think it's just a reminder of how much we are sharing on there, which, hey, it's not a bad thing for everybody, but for some people, a little bit concerned about privacy, I guess it puts it all front and center.
Yeah, it is definitely, I guess, it's not as if Facebook is lying about how they want the timeline of your life to be the focus of all of our profiles now. It seems pretty obvious to me, and I think I agree with KDA, our emailer, in that way. It's like, it seems pretty obvious what Facebook wants to do. However, I did spend some time over the weekend. So the deal is that my timeline, obviously I enabled it. And now as a Facebook dev, I can see other people's timelines that also use the same avenue to turn theirs on. So, and I know a few people who have the new timelines enabled. And you go back in time a few years, and the way that the comments now, let's say... MG. So, for example, I went back before we even knew each other a few years, and it's like comments from friends of his that I've never met before are featured, and even stuff where he's like, "Oh, that's weird." I don't even know really what the context of that was. It's like that stuff is rising up a little where before it was buried, and Facebook always had it. It wasn't as if these were comments that you had deleted that now are back, but I think it is going to possibly weird some people out.
Yeah, I mean, they're just basically porting information into a new view. But speaking of porting information to a new view, I know that you can download information from Facebook and kind of save all of your information. There are a few different tools to do that. But have you heard of anything like, I'm thinking of that, maybe actually I read this in our show notes too, but we mentioned this before where they had that Twitter book, the coffee table book. Is there an interesting way to kind of print it and make it look good? Or, I mean, I guess it's too early, right? Too soon?
Print a well, that'd be a big book.
Like a timeline. It'd be interesting to print some of the stuff, though. You know, if it is like your timeline, yeah, you're right. It would be a pretty big book because there's so much. Well, it would be a big book for us, Sarah.
I guess it depends on the person. I mean, honestly, it's like when I look back in my timeline, I realize I have never been a very big Facebook user. And again, I also had a page, so I was on Facebook a lot.
Yeah.
But I wasn't spending a lot of time in my profile. I mean, most of my activity over the last good 6 months has been other people tagging me in Facebook places. Like, I went to a movie, but I didn't do anything. It's just somebody else tagging me, which is fine. But some people are like, I mean, they spend a lot of time on Facebook, and their timelines will reflect that. But yeah, I kind of like the book thing. I mean, certainly for photos. I mean, it's the biggest photo repository of all social networks now, by far.
Exactly. I mean, you're just so many people are either tagging you or you're sharing so many of your pictures there and just forgetting to print anything. Not that to be honest with you, I don't really print a lot, Sarah, but I kind of like the idea that I could have paper back in my life in some type of album form. So I think that's sort of interesting. So do you think you'll use Facebook more now?
Yeah, I do. Part of the reason is because subscriptions I have also turned on, and that allows people who, maybe we don't know each other that well, but if you'd like to follow my public posts on Facebook, works a lot more like Google Plus than ever. You can do that. And for the most part, I just don't feel like I'm so used to everything being public that I don't see that many posts that I will post on Facebook that I would lock down. I mean, maybe in my family group or, if there's a picture that I think maybe someone else wouldn't want public, I'll try to keep that in mind. But for the most part, pretty public person. So Facebook now works well for me because it's my public presence on Facebook. And anybody can join if they want to be involved. The same way that I use Google Plus. I'm not sure that's making the most of all the features that are on both of the networks. Google Plus is all about circles. I never use my circles at all. I mean, I have certain people in circles, and I post everything public because that's just what I do. So maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, I do think that this has renewed my interest in Facebook 100%. So that's good.
Sarah, just out of curiosity, I know you said, just because I haven't actually done this yet, but you said that you're no longer using your page. So basically you've kind of morphed it into one. How was that done? Okay,
so I have some friends over at Facebook who expedited the process for me.
Oh, okay.
This is something that will be available. It's not like I got special privileges. They just sort of said, oh, yeah, I see what you're doing. This is going to be an option for any individual who has a page and a profile that are associated with the same account. And they say, I'd like to dump my page into my profile. Dump is it makes it sound like the page isn't helpful. My page was great. I mean, all of those people who liked my page were important to me. I didn't want to lose them. So it's just a merge, really.
Perfect.
Yeah. And Facebook is into that. They want individuals who aren't organizations. They're not really brands. They're not really a group to do this because it just helps clean it up. And for someone like me, it's like, I never really wanted a page in the first place. That was just the only way I could have more than 5,000 friends.
Exactly. So. I know. Yeah, I totally get it. So that's good to know that they will be releasing that feature because there are quite a few people I know who are having that issue where they, might have a page and they have a personal account as well. And it's too cumbersome to kind of update both of them. So I think if it will be available, I think that's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. So how come you haven't flipped on your timeline yet? I would think that you'd be curious.
Well, Sarah, this happens to me all the time. I feel like I go into a vortex. Okay, if I have work, additional work, or I'm working on a project. And this weekend, I've been shooting this web series for Ford, and it's like a 6-part series. So I literally worked all weekend long pretty much. And so I'll just hunker down and have to get through a ton of work. And then if you do that over the course of 2 or 3 days, then all of a sudden something major happens in the social space. And I just haven't had a chance to do it because I've been barely keeping up with other work. So it's just been a hectic schedule. So that happens to me more often than the average person. I'll go through 2 or 3 day spans where either I'm traveling or I have some project I'm working on, and literally it's like day and night. I just almost, I lose out on what's happening, especially cool things like this.
Well,
so I'll get on it.
It doesn't take much. It's like you blink really, and you miss the Facebook changed their whole strategy.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing, right?
During our show last week, none of this existed to even talk about. So, I mean, it really does change. So I hear you. I feel your pain. I was away all weekend for a wedding, and it's like when I do Tech News Today later on today, I already know I'm going to be behind or feel behind the guys just because I missed Friday's show.
I know. That's all it takes.
Well, okay, so enough Facebook for now. This is obviously something that we'll be revisiting, and features will continue to be rolled out, and people will continue to weigh in, but that's enough. I know you guys got your fill of Facebook news and F8 news last week, but there was something for the Google Plus fans, and obviously there are so many that watch the Social Hour. Chrome extensions. We haven't talked about any cool Chrome extensions for Google Plus in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Ever? I'm not sure.
Well, we did. There's one extension with the sort of preview pane, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Which I still use. I love that one.
Yeah, so there's another extension, and it is called, let me make sure I get this right. It's called Photo Zoom. It's actually Plus Photo Zoom, and it's a obviously free Chrome extension. And again, yes, you have to be using the Chrome browser. That's my browser of choice. So if you're not using the Chrome browser, it's kind of worth it just to have it so you can play around with add-ons, because they can be really helpful, especially in Google+. I have one running right now, again, Photo Zoom, and Trey Ratcliffe, who's obviously a very popular photographer and friend of Twit on Google+, introduced me to it. And what's nice about it is, like, any photo that's in your stream, you just hover over it, and now you see a nice, larger version. I didn't have to do anything. I'm not clicking. I'm simply hovering. And it gives you a nicer snapshot of a high-res photo. Now, this is a photo that Liz, who works at Twit, took. So I'm familiar with this photo. I mean, I've seen this before. Now let's go. Oh, I'm looking at my own profile, so these are all going to be pictures of me. But let's go just to the main feed here. Ben Parr took a picture of, I don't know, somebody. That's not maybe the most interesting picture in the world. But this is like, what is this? Brittany Morin posted. It just gives you, some pictures are higher res to begin with than others. So, of course, this picture is not so much bigger than the one that was just in my stream in the first place. But it can be helpful, especially for pictures that are detailed, where it's like, I just want like a nice little higher res version without having to click. So I like this.
Yes. Yeah, that's just a fun little, especially, that's one thing I love about Google+. I mean, I think I don't post there as much as I post on Facebook and Twitter, but I love the way that photos look. And I mean, this is just an added benefit to be able to make them look even better. But I find just when I get into the Google+ environment, I love posting stuff there where it's just easier. I think the interface is so clean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this Scott Beal of Laughing Squid posted this image. To me, this looks like something in a museum, and you go, oh, it's Bill Murray. Okay, cool. So that's a really good example of where the larger version really helped with the context. Now I'm all of a sudden very interested in this link where it probably wouldn't even have jumped out at me otherwise. So yeah, that's just a nice little G plus extra, which I feel like I've done a lot of complaining. I even posted on Google Plus about this morning. It's like, I complain a lot, like, Google team, what are you doing? Why don't you fix some of the stuff that some of us obviously want you to fix? But that's where extensions / add-ons, whatever you want to call them, especially in Chrome, which is a popular browser, really do come in handy, because people can make all sorts of little tweaks, and then you can create a customized experience.
Well, Sarah, it takes a long time for these social media sites to change. All I need to say is Instagram, Android app. I could go on forever. Right. It takes a long time. Speaking of change, this is kind of fun. I know you have this for our Spotlight segment.
Yeah.
A new service called Stellar. And when I went to read about it, it's awesome. The first line, what is Stellar? Good question. We're still trying to figure that out. And then they kind of go on from there. But as far as I understand, is this a service from, is it Jason
Kottke, of Kottke.org, who's I mean, if you're not familiar with him, Kottke.org has been around. Gosh, he's really one of those pioneers of the people who brought us all the good links before that was even in vogue. He's like the link hipster. He was doing it before it was cool. So yeah, Jason Kottke, and I'm not sure if it's a one-man operation or if he's got other people helping him out, created something called Stellar, which is at stellar.io. And what this is, is a way for people's favorites around the internet to be presented in a very familiar, almost a Tumblr blog type way, aggregated based on who you follow. So Chad, if you just want to take my page, I've got my account up here, and I'm following not that many people, but you can see the people I'm following. Some of these are people that Stellar has suggested to me, and Gina Trapani, John Gruber, Scott Simpson. I mean, these are all people that I really respect. So part of this is kind of algorithmic, and you can just go ahead and find somebody on the site if you wanted to also. But just go to my flow there. These are all either videos, links, pictures, and so on that these people that I'm following have liked around the internet. So the services that Stellar works with right now are limited. It's YouTube, Vimeo, Flickr, and Twitter. Here's the interesting thing about Stellar. As you noticed, I have not added my Twitter favorites to Stellar, and the reason why is if you go over to my Twitter favorites, I favorite things on Twitter. I treat them like bookmarks. Amber, I do this for the social hour all the time. Someone will say, someone that I'm following will say, "Ooh, I love this app, great writing tool." And, I'll be using on my iPhone or in a hurry or something. And it's like, I just want to favorite that so I can go back and look at it later because it'll disappear in my Twitter stream otherwise. But Stellar treats a favorite like I love this. And I mean, obviously, I don't know if I love that app or not yet because I haven't even gotten around to trying it. So it's a Stellar. I love the service, but I'm reluctant to add my Twitter favorites because I'm afraid that people following me on the service will say, well, why is this a favorite of hers? We don't really get it. Because when you look at the other people's favorites, they're funny tweets, or they're extremely helpful tweets. These are people are using them. Jenny Jardin, for example, is using favorites as stuff that she's really kind of giving her seal of approval on, I guess, or very interesting. You should really read this, and that's not necessarily how I use it. So I'm not sure if it's perfect for me, or maybe I'm just going to need to change my Twitter habits. Do you do the same thing as me? Do you bookmark as favorites on Twitter?
Yeah, I do. I bookmark a ton, actually, because I do so many different shows. So even right now, while I have my browser opening and I'm looking at my bookmark manager in Chrome, I have every single show in a different folder, and then I'll just bookmark stuff to make sure that I go through it for the next show, just in preparation to have something cool to talk about. But I wouldn't feel comfortable tweeting out, just like you said, sending out, I should say, every single thing that I put in here, because some of the articles, I may read them and they're not as relevant as I thought they might be. So
exactly.
You're right. It hasn't truly been vetted. So I'm not sure a service like this would be great for me either. So it's one of those maybe wait and watch and see how they come along. But it sounds like even from the website, Sarah, that they're also trying to figure out how people use it. So at least they're open and honest about that.
Yeah, I think that it's almost a really good experiment. And I'd love to get Jason on our show at some point. Yes. I threw out a line, but I'll try harder because I'm sure he's very busy. There's a lot of jobs, it seems like. Busy guy on the internet. Yeah, but yeah, it's probably a good learning experience for them because I can't. Well, you and I can't be the only people saying I love this for following other people. But I'm not sure if my habits are the sort of thing that you are wanting to showcase because we're almost cheating. It's not so much a favorite as much as a thumbtack.
And, I think, everything needs a little context too, right? You need to do a little research and then write a little something. So it's just a little more effort, I think, before you share publicly. Sarah, I love this news about Tumblr. Pretty interesting because we all knew Tumblr was a big hit out there in the social space. However, when I'm reading this headline, I think I read it about 5 times. Tumblr lands 85 million. Does that say 85 million?
It does. Yes. Your eyes are not deceiving you. Wow. Huge round of funding. And I guess right now everyone is crying Valley bubble or just internet bubble in general more than ever. I was not at F8's big after party show last week, but Snoop Dogg was performing and everyone was just like, oh my gosh, these are like the bubble parties of the late 90s, kind of thing. So you hear that a lot. So in a way, I almost feel like I'm desensitized to things like 85 million. It's like, it's not even a billion, whatever. That's a lot of money. And Tumblr it's sort of like Tumblr hasn't had a lot of, I don't know, until now, I guess, big press, or at least not anything that we've been watching closely or covering. But they've sort of quietly blown up in usage.
It's massive. I mean, even if you just read in this article talking about Tumblr's growth and how it's attracted everybody, including popular musicians like Lady Gaga, and traffic leapt to 13 billion page views per month from 2 billion page views per month.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even
amazing.
That's like not even doubling or tripling. That's crazy. More than 40 million posts each day. Tumblr is, I love Tumblr. I've always liked it. I wouldn't say that I'm I don't visit Tumblr every day. So I'm not a daily user. So I know that there are people who invest a lot more. Also, a lot of people use Tumblr as their primary blog, which I don't. So I think that means, that makes a big difference. But yeah, once you've got Lady Gaga, I think people want to start giving you a lot of money.
Yeah, it's interesting though. If you think about some of the different social services and you think about the ones that you actually do use, and the reality is the only ones I really use regularly are truly kind of social services. I'm not saying Tumblr isn't social, but there isn't that kind of back and forth stream of conversations that happens on Facebook. I mean, I know there are comments and things like that, but it's not that, quick and easy, send something out and then a bunch of people will comment back. It's not as accessible, I think, for a lot of people. So I know it doesn't take too much investment, but maybe just a little bit more than I'm willing to do right now, because I'm so comfortable in my own habits of using some of these other tools.
Yeah, I do a lot of reading my Tumblr dashboard. It's kind of the equivalent of the news feed. But Amber, you're right. There is not a real-time quality to Tumblr that some people are great with that. I mean, real-time is too much for certain people.
Oh, yeah.
But once you get used to it, you're sort of like, I don't know, the static experience feels kind of static. So it depends on who you are. But obviously Tumblr, they've got money now, not only to make sure that they can accommodate the explosion in new users activity and, make sure that the servers don't go down all the time, but possibly try to experiment with just what we're talking about, trying to keep up with other social networks. Maybe there'll be some real-time capabilities that we'll see on Tumblr now that, they just weren't able to do before. But best of luck to them.
Best of luck. Now, Sarah, we have another email. We've got some long emails, I'm noticing.
We did. We did.
So I'm going to try to paraphrase this one.
Yes, please do.
Is about Holler, which is an app that we reviewed, I think, a couple of weeks ago that helps you organize activities and meet up with people who are nearby and you have shared interests. So it looks as though this particular listener is, she works at Tumblr, as far as I can tell.
She works at Holler, yeah. She's
Holler, sorry. Got me Tumblr.
Director of operations, she's Natasha. Hello, Natasha.
Okay, Natasha. So she has written, sorry for saying Tumblr, just on my mind.
No, it's okay.
She has written us an email to tell us a little bit about how Holler is different from other group texting services and admits they haven't done the best job explaining that. She talks a little bit about different groups who may want to use Holler. For instance, a group of runners, and you're wondering if anyone else nearby is interested in possibly going for a run or getting together. But the big thing I think she says in this email that I kind of pulled out from here is that instead of being a competitor to other group texting apps, she sees Holler more as a competitor in the world of services like Meetup, for example, that kind of bring people together for organized activities. So that was kind of interesting because I would not have put them in that category originally. And so some insight into what Holler does and maybe a little bit more in line with what she would like us to categorize it in as far as different types of web services.
Yeah, I appreciated this because we had mentioned it. You and I talked a little bit about it and said, well, it certainly looks good, but how is it going to compete with like a Facebook Messenger type of a thing? It's all about organizing, group conversations. There's an events component. We both said, well, it certainly looks good, but, it just remains to be seen. Like, why will this catch on more than something else? I had mentioned, they must be based in San Francisco because it's a lot of San Francisco places. And she said, indeed, that's where they're from. So I went ahead and I gave Holler another look. I've actually got it running on my iPhone here, which might be slightly hard to see, but you get a sense of what it actually looks like on a phone. And, Natasha's right. It is less of a group messaging app, although you can use it that way, and more of a organizing around activities. And she wanted to make it pretty clear that it's not just about let's have a group conversation. It's like maybe let's have a conversation around watching Mad Men. So I've actually created a event. I invited MG too, because he's the only person who's going to watch it with me. we watch Mad Men the day after everybody else has watched Mad Men because we don't have cable. But it's like, I've created a group. There's 2 people involved. The location is the couch. Time TBD, because we can watch whenever we want because it's on demand on our Apple TV. And then I've got a little comment here. Don't make me wait till tomorrow. I want to watch it today. But I could invite anybody I want. And Holler, it was good of them to point out to us that this is also, let's say you were really into bicycling, you're a cycle enthusiast. You could you could find people through the Holler app that are also interested in that. And the emphasis is finding other people to get out and about and do stuff with, but then bringing your own friends along. So it's not as if you're like, oh gosh, I'm going to join this, this group of people, new mothers group, and maybe I won't like any of them sort of thing. It's like you already have certain stuff in common, but it's about bringing your other friends into it. So it's good clarification. For as many apps and services that are out there, as far as getting people together, sometimes they do seem to blend and seem like other services. So it's good that they set us straight.
Very cool. Sarah, can you hold on just 1 second?
Sure.
Sorry, just a second. My friend is just at the door for a surprise visit. No, it's okay. Sarah,
you guys. Okay, Amber has more people just coming to her front door than anyone else I know.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's hi, friend.
I know, it's funny because everybody kind of knows that we're home all the time because we work from home. So if they see our car and they're in the neighborhood, they will stop by. And I think I've kind of learned, you've worked with Leo forever, that if something happens, just naturally let it happen instead of being awkward, like, oh my God, So I was just waving at her to come in, but she didn't see me. So I sent her downstairs to see Chris. So it's all good. But yes, Holler, very interesting. And I love the idea, like you said, it's more focused on activities. I could see using this for running. I'm always looking for running partners. So it'd be kind of fun.
Do you feel like you would be comfortable finding someone else that was in your area who didn't seem crazy, kind of thing? And let's say you brought a friend along, so it's not just you and a stranger, but like having a third person running?
Well, I'm going to give you a really honest answer. I would feel comfortable probably if it was a woman in my neighborhood, yes.
Okay, yes.
And I say that because, to be honest with you, I think if it was a man, I just wouldn't feel as comfortable just meeting up, clearly. But if it was a woman in my neighborhood, I knew she lived a bit nearby. There's a lot of people who are into social media in this, the area where I live in Toronto. So I've connected with a ton of people that are using Twitter and other services. So I think I would, but I don't know if I would just meet up with a random guy. Sorry, boys.
No, that's I totally am 100% with you on that one. All right, before we get to, I know you've got a friend over, and we also have your Rad or Fad, but just want to remind everybody, we try to make it as easy as possible for you all to contribute to our little show here. Write us, the social hour at twit.tv is our email address. You can leave us a voicemail. Please try to keep it to 30 seconds or less so that we can actually play them on the show. 2626 SOCIAL, that's social, 2626 social, that's our Google Voice number. Just leave us a message, and we'll play it on the show. Or you can always record a video, upload it somewhere, and then we'll play it on the show. And it's always fun to see you all in the flesh.
Yes. We love videos,
or the fur, if you're a cat or something.
Fake fur, of course. But of course, remember that, like Sarah said, keep it nice and short and sweet. And also describe something. If you're sending a video, because we have a lot of listeners, right, who only get the audio, make sure that your video is also relevant and good for people who are doing the audio only thing with the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. For all of our audio listeners, we try our best to explain everything that we're looking at. Obviously, my explanation of Facebook timeline was probably not that helpful to you because there's just so much visual stuff. So that's always, if you're ever listening to the show and thinking, well, that was great, but boy, I really missed some chunks, you can always go back to our website because we've got all of our videos there, just on demand, that you can shuffle through and get caught up on any little holes you might have felt like you had in the conversation. All right, Amber, it's time now for your Rad or Fad, and frankly, this one scares me a little bit.
Okay, so I have to. I don't want to make it long, Sarah, but there's sort of a bit of a story behind this week's Rad or Fad. First of all, I should say that I was reading an article on the BBC news site because sometimes like I mentioned last week, I try to go to different sources, not just Mashable and Read Right Web all the time. And I read this headline that said, "Internet of Things, should you worry if your genes go smart?" And I was like, that's kind of interesting. What do they mean? And then I read the sort of sub-headline. It says, what if those new jeans you've just bought start tweeting about your location as you cross the London Bridge? Then I'm thinking, this is awesome. This is so perfect for the social hour. I'm going to definitely include this. So I put it into the rundown. And then I kept reading. And I realized that this is a serious tease. The article isn't exactly about jeans that tweet. However, it is about a specific type of technology that is sort of infiltrating almost the social space. So I think in that sense, that's good for our Rad or Fad. And the reason they brought this up is because a lot of stores are using RFID tags in clothing. So basically, this article is just kind of warning people a little bit that, hey, maybe sometimes these tags can get too intelligent and they can do too much and give away too much information and they're too easy to track you. And I kept doing some research into RFID tags into the social space to notice there's a lot of companies who are actually putting tags in products and doing everything from having social games and bringing the social space in connection with actual products with these tags that have been inserted. And I was thinking, is this Rad or Fad, or is it just creepy knowing that, let's say, Sarah, I go to buy a book or a product and there's some type of RFID tag, and maybe there is a cool social element like a game, but I bring it home and maybe I don't know about it and it could be tracking where I'm going. What do you think? It seems it is a little scary, right?
Well, it's fun. I love how we, on a regular basis, go, is this cool or creepy? Because and often we're not sure. I just don't see why clothing needs to be involved at all. And maybe I'm just not open-minded enough, but it's like that's sort of the last place I need to have social capabilities. Unless I'm just really missing I have to wear clothes to leave my house every day. So that would possibly be just one less thing I would have to remember to carry on my person.
I don't know. I mean, would people use it to dress their kids in clothes so they could track them then? I mean, that's the first thing I thought of. I wouldn't want to do this, but would people track their kids? And is that appropriate? On the branding side of things, I read about Vail Resorts in Colorado, how they've been known for using RFID tags in your ski pass. And that essentially allows you to take part in this really interactive social game. So skiers and snowboarders can kind of connect and track all of their activities on the slopes. And so in that case, I'm like, that sounds kind of fun. But again, just this insertion of technology into products, whether it's a pass at a ski resort or if it's in clothing, whatever it might be, I just wonder if you're not savvy enough about that technology. I don't know if the public's going to like it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think, and someone in chat pointed out, Groovy in chat says, Amber speaks like a true mom, which actually, when we're talking younger kids, I mean, do kids are there privacy issues as far as tracking your kids? I mean, you'd think that would actually be really great, especially if they're at daycare and what if they go somewhere strange? You're like, where's the daycare person going? Type of a thing. I can see that actually being great. I mean, it's not unlike tracking a pet. If something were to go wrong, you certainly want the ability to figure out as closely as possible where your loved one is. But yes. I guess on the ski slopes, that's another really good example. Like, which mountain are you on? Oh, okay, that's where they are, and they're not answering, or or they don't have their phone, or that kind of thing. But I'm not sure how many examples I could come up with beyond those two where it seems like a good idea. I think there are certain cases where you go, this is so helpful right now, but probably not on a daily basis would I feel like it's necessary. And I don't want anything on my clothes. Well, and then what if you leave a jacket somewhere and then you confuse somebody?
It's just weird. Okay, but then, on the flip side of this, if you think back to that really cool resort, I think it was in Ibiza, perhaps, where you could wear that Facebook bracelet and then you could essentially scan it. I believe that was an RFID tag, if I'm correct. So that's interesting to me because it's like, okay, you choose to all put on the tag or the bracelet with the tag at a certain venue for a certain amount of time, and then you kind of take it off. But it's the clothing thing where I'm thinking, clothes are in your closet, and if you start putting these things in certain products that sort of sit around your house, then it just creeps me out altogether. So I'm going to put this in sort of a fad category as far as insertion in products for a social reason beyond something like that Ibiza example.
Yeah, I think it's kind of rad it's event-based rad.
Yes, you got it. You nailed it.
Yeah, the resort example is a good one because I think, I spend so much of my time tagging myself in different locations on Foursquare and Gowalla and Facebook places. And it's like, I'm doing that all the time. So it's not as if I have such an issue with my friends knowing where I am. I'm doing a pretty good job of letting them know. So this could be more of like an automatic type thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's helpful for them unless it's like, we're all at a bachelorette party in Vegas. What hotels they're at, kind of thing. So yeah, event-based rad. Overall, sad.
Kind of baddish, yeah. Not so cool. Anyway, but you know what? This is a perfect opportunity for all of our listeners and viewers if they have an example of cool RFID technology that has some type of social spin, similar to the great examples we got of QR codes. Maybe you could do a little video or a voicemail for us or send us an email and we will share those on the show next week.
Absolutely. And with that, we've come to the end of our hour, the social hour. Very social today. Had a great guest.
Social.
Good conversation, so much to cover, and we still didn't get to everything that we would have liked to cover. So, it's so nice. Our social content is we just spill over everything we didn't get to into the next week, unless it's not relevant anymore, and then we just say,
it's just so much, Sarah.
I know, exactly.
And, we've been almost exactly an hour.
I know. I've noticed that too because we started a little bit late. And now we're ending a little bit late for the live viewers. Everybody else who's not watching us live, doesn't really matter. Just about an hour. But yeah, that's it. Remember to subscribe to the show if you're ever not able to watch us live. But if you are, please do, because it's really fun. Live on Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And our website is twit.tv/TSH. And of course, you can always find us on iTunes. Got audio and video feeds, high res, everything. And we're even going to be streaming HD soon, as far as I know.
Ooh, that's awesome.
It's kind of scary.
I need to get a new HD camera. Actually, if anyone has a recommendation of a great HD, just a camera that I should be using for whether it's a web camera or a little camcorder or something, just let me know because I think I got to up it then.
Yeah,
got to up the quality of the video.
Got to stay with the times. All right, Amber. Well, I will let you go and socialize with your friends, but I will see you here next week, same time, same place, and of course, we'll be in touch on the internets throughout the rest of the week.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.